Hello everyone, my name is Neelaban and I'll be showing you how we can link Access 2007 with SQL Server 2008. Now the first thing we must remember is we need to download the correct packages to do this. Sometimes we download some packages from the internet and we don't get a full package. What we need is the management tool and the server. So in my case, what I downloaded SQL Server Management Studio 2008 and Microsoft SQL Server 2008 R2. I installed those two packages and so I got a full package to do what we do. What you can do is you can check in Control Panel to make sure that the package was installed properly. So we can go into remove programs, and as you can see here, now the package is installed. So what we needed is the tools so that we can configure the package. Okay, so let's begin. First, we need to create a database table in SQL Server. So let's go into the SQL Server Management Configuration tool. Now, before we get into SQL database, you must authenticate the user. Now, what we need is your computer name, which is now the server name, together with the instance name. When you install your SQL Server, you would get an instance name. In this case, it's SQL Express. So this is your database server name. Keep that in mind. Write it down. Authentication, Windows authentication. Keep this as default. So what we do, we just connect. So what we are doing here is connecting to the SQL Server. We're going to create tables so that we can link the Access database with those tables. Okay, we have database on the side here. Just right-click the database, create a new database, give the database a name. I will give this a name student1 because I think I have a student there already, but I want to create a new one. So we're going to call this student1. Click OK. Now if you expand database, you would see student1 created. Right click student1. Oh, sorry, expand student1. Right click the tables and create a new table. So what we're doing here, let's create some tables, some fields in SQL Server. I would create an ID field. Enter. You can leave it as char. First name, last name, date of birth, DOB, and I'll just create a city. Enter. Now the date of birth field should be a date field. That's a date field, or this can remain as chars. One thing to remember with the date field, you need to write the date as the year, the month, and the date. Year, month, date. But I'll show you as we go along when we create it in Access. Okay, so we created the fields in the SQL Server. We'll save it. It asks you for a name. Let's give it the name of the database. Sorry. Let's call it student 1. Okay, click OK. Okay, so now these fields are now saved in SQL Server. Let's minimize SQL Server and let's open Access in administrator mode. In order for us to do that, we need to launch Access in administrator mode. There's a Windows 8.1 by the way, 32-bit. Okay, as we open Microsoft Access, there's Access 2007. Click on the blank database. Click on Create. Leave this as default. Click on External Data. Click on More. Click on ODBC Database. Now we want to link the database with SQL. So we click on Link to the data source by creating a link table. Click OK. Click Machine Data Source. Now we need to bring in student 1 here. Click on New. Click on System Data Source. We click on Next. We search for SQL Server. Select a driver for which you want to set up a data source. SQL Server drivers. Click Next. And click Finish. Now in this area here, create a new data source, SQL Server. What name do you want to use to refer to the data source? Let's call it student. Let's call it student 1. Leave this description as is. This is important here. You remember the server name we talked about? You must put in the exact server name, which is a computer name and the instance name. In my case, it's Neil-laptop /SQL just as we would write it. Click Next. Leave the authentication as Windows authentication. Leave this as is. Click Next. On this area here, we need to change the default database. We don't want to choose master. We want to choose student 1. We click Next. And click Finish. Now a new ODBC data source will be created. And this is just a summary of what your database is about. This is your student 1 database, your server name, instance name. We can click Test Data Source here to test the connection. Test complete successfully. So we know there is a connection between Microsoft Access and SQL database. Click OK. You can click OK here again. Now as you can see, student 1 is created here. Okay, click OK. As you can see, student 1 database here. Highlight student 1 database, click OK. Now these are the fields that we have on the SQL Server. Highlight the fields, hold down Control, highlight each of the fields, click OK. Okay, as you can see, the field here was created. If you double click on this Microsoft Access, by the way, I double click here. Let's see. Okay, double click on it, you will see the field that was created in the SQL Server. What we can do, let's populate these fields with some information. Okay, I'll just put my name, or I can put somebody else. The first name, last name. Okay, songs false. Date of birth. Now remember what I said. We need to put it in this format. In this case, let's say 1989 dash month dash date. If we don't put it in this format, we're going to get some errors. City, let's say, okay, so we entered some information in Microsoft Access. We click save the information. Now, okay, and we can continue down the line, adding more IDs and first name, last name, and populate this whole database in Access. Now let's see if this is now linked to SQL Server. Minimize this field, minimize the access, and let's close off SQL Server. We need to close it off. In other words, we need to restart SQL Server so that it would recognize the new information. And let's open it back into the management, log back in, and open the database, expand student 1, expand tables. Okay. Now, when you reach on this point, right-click the database, right-click the student 1 database, and click on Edit Top 200 Rows. What you would see now is the database that was created in the Microsoft Access. So this is a link between, let me show you. So what we have here is a link between, why is this saying deleted? Interesting. Let's close it off and let's open it back and let's see. Let's open back the same database. Student 1 here. Right. Click OK. Get your file names. Okay, there we go. Sort of got scared for a moment there. Probably the Microsoft Access needed refreshing also. So this is your link, sorry, your link between your SQL Server and Microsoft Access 2007. Thank you for watching.